let's kick it off. Welcome to the 13th Town Hall session. I'll be today's host. My name is Jonas. And just
Did
before
anybody remember to start the recording? The recording is started. Okay,
good.
we're recording this. Good.
So
Sorry,
we are live. We are live. Yeah. Okay. But yeah. Welcome to the 13th Tagion Townhall session, and of course, Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you had a brilliant start to 2025. For today, what we are going to touch upon, I'll just share my screen again. For today, we are gonna cover both 2024. We're gonna do a recap of what our goals were and what we managed to accomplish, and then we are gonna touch upon the outlook for 2025, specifically the first half of the year. But before we get to that, I just want to let you all know that if you have any questions or comments, you are more than welcome to join us on stage. And you do that by clicking on the small button that says join podium at the bottom. Or alternatively, you can also just post comments in the chat. But I think with that being said, let's just get right into it. And Thijs, you are the first one to talk a bit.
Just keep the screen there, right? You just keep the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just go to the next slide, and then you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Jonas, and Happy New Year to all of you. And also sorry we needed to postpone the last session, but actually quite a lot of us got sick in December, so we were forced to postpone it basically. But now we're here. So what did we do in 24? Time flies by, and we actually started in February, March with doing a big organizational restructuring. We needed to actually align our focus and also our cost to the funding, but also basically align the focus of the company and the project. And when I say the company, I mean the company behind funding and operating the Tagion project, which is the card currently. So we needed to align the organization working on the Tagion project. And we did this, which of course took some power, and it also means the organization was decreased with some people, and actually some new people were added. One new people, that's Leander, because we would like to go more back to the roots. So initially, what we wanted to do was create alternative, you could say, financial and monetary systems, infrastructure for this, and also related infrastructure for supply chain. And we have been going a bit around and tried many different explorations and different, you could say, verticals, application areas. And we said we need to focus very much on the purpose of the project and get a little bit more back also to the monetary part, means like complementary currencies, financial applications, and also you could say the start of the supply chain, like working with supply chain commodities and so forth. And as Leander, for example, has specialized in this area also for, 10 years, many years, and has is a doctor in this, and then it was very nice to add to the team. So we are focusing more on the roots and why we started this project, and have a small team now that is very focused and trying to accomplish this. This is actually very positive, and we actually did quite a lot in 2024 compared to our current team size. So if you take the next slide, Jonas. So what did we actually wanted to do? We had 4 overall things. We would like to empower developers. We were also working with our partner intensely there, AN. Aeon Group, which builds the portal Aeon Connect, for example. It's an asset portal for handling, you could say, investments based on our infrastructure. And they had many requirements like normal partners and developers has, which is actually very understandable. When we did the first application with them, it was very like intertwined, basically. We didn't have fixed interfaces, SDKs, and so forth. So the first goal there in 24 was to say we want to empower developers and give them more flexibility to work independently. That was extremely important. So they could basically hit the interfaces to the systems themselves. They have a SDK so they can actually communicate with the system and so forth. And also having a TVM and a contract layer, that's the next part. It's not fully done yet, but that was also one of the milestones. Because by this, we empower developers or partners to build on top of the system. So that was priority. One priority. Another one was enhanced network resilience and stability. In the start of end of 23, we went live. And it's always good to go to production because then you need to prove it actually works, and you will also encounter a problem when you operate in production. And I think we found like 3 bugs or 4. Most of them were actually, I think we made like 4 releases. You can see it on GitHub. It was 4 releases, latest one in June, 1.4, where we fixed all the bugs. But one of them was like a severe one. It was a consensus protocol error, which has now been tested and resolved, though, but it was a big thing to do. So that's one part of having stability and resilience. Other part was we had those modes which we operate the network in, going from running basically on a local machine into process communication to network communication to being fully distributed and decentralized. And we would like to go to mode 2. That was the goal for last year. We didn't reach that also because one of the consensus bugs were actually pretty difficult to solve. Required extensive work for 2 system engineers for, I guess, nearly half a year building testing systems and actually finding solutions. But that's still something which we need to do. We need to go up to mode 2 to get resilience and stability. So that's why I said that is like 50%, because we actually fixed all the bugs. And we also went to mode 1. We are now operating in mode 0. We started in mode 0, but we are actually on test with mode 1. So we actually got halfway to mode 2. So I say it's 50%. And we, in terms of standardizing the protocols, data formats, the Hibern, the IRC, the interfaces on the shell, the communication with the shell, NND, all that thing, I actually say it's 100% done. It's also documented. It's working for developers now, at least for the first version. Also provide documentation. We have also for developers to figure out how to use the system. It's been also, I'd say 90%, it's never done documentation, but nothing is never done. But I would say if you go to DDocs, you can find system documentation and code documentation, and docs.tagion.org, you can find all the system documentation. So that has actually been a very good job the team did there as well, the core team. It's a lot of work. Then we would like to make data visible and accessible to not only people sitting with the protocol next to the or terminal next to the server, because that's not very usable. So in the shell, we built the backend components for exposing data, and in the shell component, and then we also built like a very simple explorer. We can go in and look up data in the system. And that's actually also now live, and it's been live for some time, so you can actually look up data. So that part is also 80% done. We said, yeah, it's 80 to 100% done. It depends on what is your requirement, but we actually solved this to a high degree. And it's, of course, what is needed still. We don't have state in this Explorer. There is no backend to keep the state. So it's not like a full-fledged Ethereum Explorer, something we can see all the history. And for that, we probably need some help from the community in the future to actually do this. It will be an upgrade of the Explorer. We only did the simple thing where you can look up the current data in the core system or in the core database. Then we wanted to explore also use cases for applicate the system. And actually, we said 100% because we actually found a lot of application area and a lot of partners and companies who wants to build with us, which is extremely positive. Actually, so much we need to settle on some verticals now, and it's going to be supply chain and especially also finance here to start with, because we have a lot of traction there. Yeah, and then provide support to external developers and partners. We did that with the documentation and everything. What we haven't done fully yet is still, as I said, the TVM is very far. It's being tested, but the build token and ecosystem, the last bullet here, it's I said I'm pretty sure we meant the Tagion library. So that's like a library with all the functions to create a smart contract so we can interface with the Tagion system, basically. So and we haven't built that yet. So right now it's very, very simple. It's basically just a TVM and machine that can execute WebAssembly code, which is of course also the main part. But that's going to be delivered as well. And maybe we should just take the next part. So all in all, it's actually pretty nice to look back. We actually achieved most of the things, and also we spent much more time on fixing this consensus bug than we anticipated. But again, if we didn't do this, then we didn't have a system anyway. So first things first. And currently we don't have any critical errors or bugs, which is known at least, that we don't have anything. And so that's the very good news. We also made a Tagion API. It's basically an API or SDK, whatever you call it, for applications. And for example, it could be .NET or Flutter or whatever. So like a library which you can import into other frameworks or systems. And we also made a Flutter library for this, and it's also published on Flutter, where you can go down in and download the Tagion SDK, and then you can actually interface with the system and build on it directly in the mobile application to make it easier for developers to work on the system to support the partners. Then we have, and it was not fully planned. Then we have partners and clients. We have start of the year, we passed due diligence with a big tech partner, which we are still discussing potential projects with. They did a very throughout technical due diligence, and especially on the quality frameworks and how we do CI/CD, do testing, and how we work, what is our internal processes and team processes. And they were very happy with this, actually. So we got thumbs up on in a technical review. So that's actually very good work from Carsten and the team, because that was a quite extensive review. We also have, we actually succeeded with the prospects, as I said, and actually matured some of them pretty far, so far that we're actually working with concrete projects right now, or closing concrete projects. We updated web pages, both for Tagion, but also for the card. And we also made the whole docs sections on Tagion. Yeah, I guess that's more or less it, right? That's actually quite a lot.
Yeah. So maybe to summarize, we then can say that so up here, these were the expectations and milestones for the year, which we set out at the beginning of last year. You can find it in a town hall session from I think February or January last year. But we did manage to deliver on most of these, despite having to do some organizational restructuring and downsizing but we still managed to deliver on most of these, and then also deliver on some additional things. So all in all, very positive. I think it's fair to say. All right. But yeah, so that was the 2024 recap. Let me see if there is any questions before we move on. No, it's just
Or any comments from the team, or they want to say something which they, or any question, comments.
all right.
I actually got pretty happy when I looked back and we did this recap. I said, "Oh, it's been a tough year, but wow, we actually did quite a lot. So that's nice."
Yeah. All right. So now that we have wrapped up 2024, we will turn to 2025, and I believe Carsten, you are the first to talk a bit about some of the milestones for deliveries for the first half year of 2025 when it comes to core tech.
Yes, and it actually extends what Ty said. We want to engage more development flexibility. So what we didn't have before was every time we need to make a smart contract, we actually had to do it in the core team because it was pretty hardwired. So that's why we have worked on the TVM, so it's more flexible. And this means, or the Tagion, just to mention, is actually the TVM is the virtual machine executing, and the Tagion is a library. So you need some library functions like how to actually read information, how to modify information for the database, and so on, and how to check the signatures and so on. It's like blockchain, you need some function libraries. And then, of course, we are working on the resilience, and this means we are working on distribution of the network. Like how do we actually, when you start up a new node, how to synchronize the network? How do you actually discover the network, and how do we secure that you are part of the network? And all this is very important when we actually distribute, because right now we are running it. It's much easier if you run yourself, then you can trust yourself, right? But this is what we have to solve, and we are working on this. This is primarily the focus of the first half year. Mode 2 is in principle where we can distribute outside our own system and people can start to run a mirror node. We actually wanted to reach this last year, but because we had a problem with the consensus, which took a long time, and we also got because we due to the sales, they are selling stuff, and that's bad because then we have to but then we decided to focus more on the flexibility, because if we or else then the core team needs to do everything, and it's not stable. It's not a good way to work over time, because then we just get a system which is not flexible enough. So we focused more on the virtual machine and the development front end for external development and also internal development. That's why we moved the mode 1 to beginning of 25. But we have actually done a lot on the mode 1 and mode 2. But this is what we focus on the next half year.
And it's actually a good point, Carsten. We choose to say, I think it was in October or something, we said, now we put on flexibility or the TVM as first priority, because we can simply see if we cannot scale organization independently, and all the same teams needs to do the same stuff, like core teams need to do hard-coded contracts. each time we do need to do an application with an application team, it's simply not workable. It's not scalable, not from an organizational or technical point of view. So we moved that up to our first priority instead.
Yeah, and also because we can't really sell to customers if they can't really interface to our system, if we have to do everything. So it's also to enable
For sure.
aid
enable the sales and customer applications.
So that's why we have moved a little, but we expect to be able to finish this in the next 6 months. So.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say, just to sum up, that the next half year on the tech side is about preparing the network for getting different use cases onboarded seamlessly.
Exactly.
Right. All right.
And Jonas, if there's new people here, you can just go to docs.tagion.org. I don't know if you can. If you, and it depends on the network you're on. If you're an external network, it works. Then you can show the modes if you want to.
Yeah, sure.
I just shared the link in the chat for the network notes.
Yeah.
But you have them there.
So you can see perfect. The different. Yeah, you can see the explanation of the different modes.
Yeah, maybe we can just very simple. Just put a few words on this. One of the more tech-savvy people.
Yeah. So mode 0 is actually it's all the basic algorithm for it's actually inter-process communication. So it means that it runs on one machine because the network is not important. It's a consensus algorithm and the database and all the other stuff. So mode 1 is then we've split the different nodes up into standalone programs which can communicate with a net socket and mode 2 is then when we because one thing is that if we start all the nodes and they agree on everything and they just run stable, then everything works. But when we have a distributed system, then we need to start a node and it has to find the other nodes, and then it has to synchronize so it comes up to the same state. This is mode 2, and mode 3 is actually where we can swap in and out what's called validator nodes. So we swap in and out. So it's actually real network. In mode 2, there is still a fixed number of validators, but in mode 3 it would be more distributed, so you can swap in and out different nodes with a unpredictable algorithm, so you can't see who is swapped in, or you can verify, but you don't know who is swapped in. And the mode 4 is then where we have more sub ecosystems, or what we call sub darts, or whatever you call it. We have different wording for this, but it's actually different application nodes for different purposes. So that's how we divide it up. So yeah.
And we're currently in mode 1, and
yes.
This is, so just to put it in more simple terms, this is a schedule or an overview for how the network becomes progressively more decentralized, in essence. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe also just before we move on, I just briefly want to mention that, and I think this is a quite crucial point, but it has taken quite some years to build this, but there is also a difference between what we do and most other DLTs do, because we build everything more or less from scratch, whereas for most other crypto projects, DLTs, whatever you want to call them, they heavily use what others already have built, or simply copy paste what is already there. So that's also something to keep in mind, that this does take some time, and that is due to the fact that we simply build something novel. All right. So let's move on to the deliveries on the business side for the first half of 2025, and I believe it's you, Thijs.
Yeah. So for the first quarter, what we want to do, we want to again continue what we're actually already doing. We want to close our first commercial contract with a solution to run on the Tagion system. Expected to be closed here rather soon. So we can announce this new partnership and solution system. We would like to do 2 more solutions on the system. So we have 3 in total, end of H1, but 2 will also satisfy the goal there. So 2 in total and 1 new. And then we have coming up with something new, a new term, utility-driven demand or organic demand, whatever we call it. It means basically demand stemming from using the system. So when I do a transaction, I need to pay a small fee for using the system, or storing a document for that matter, paid in Tagions. But we would like the utility, the fees paid to the system monthly to be 500,000 a month end of this half year. And now we say signed in parentheses there. One thing is we have now started to develop those projects and sign them with different partners and companies. Other thing is, of course, they're actually delivered and working on the platform. So our goal is to get all these signed and start the development. And then, of course, when they're actually deployed, that's a good question. But so that's how we measure it currently. But the main goal is to get utility up, or organic demand, because that's how the business model works in the end, like creating demand for the tokens because you actually use them for a service who then can pay, for example, the node operators or community members who do work for the system. This is the main business model in the system. So this is the first time we actually put out like a key metric to actually measure real usage of the system. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's yeah. So again, it's just whenever we say utility-driven demand, it means that the businesses that gets onboarded, they actually need to acquire TDN to actually run their applications. Of course, that is actual demand for the token, and it's not something that relies on pure speculation or selling virtual images of monkeys or whatever. But this is actually some demand rooted in actual use cases out there in the real world.
And not marketing and speculation.
No.
Yeah. Actually, we have a question. Could you provide an estimate timeline for when individuals will be able to start running their own nodes?
I will actually say after Q1 and Q2 we have so people can start a mirror node, and then of course after mode 3 you can run a real node. But
maybe we go one up, Jonas. Maybe it needs some. Maybe
can you take maybe so after we have after Q2 we actually have the mirror node running, and this and if somebody wants to test it, that would be of course nice, and it also means that you with a mirror node you can actually start to also make own application and so on top of it. Actually you can do this all in after Q1, I would say after Q1 ends.
But actually, just to clarify here, so it can mean more things. What is asking? So, Fidel, if you're asking, can you actually hook into the production system? That's what Carsten is talking about. So, in end of Q2 or maybe before, you can set up a mirror node where you can hook into the main production system and get data basically, where you can build services on top of your own mirror node. So that will be able when the mode 2 is working and the mirror nodes are also working. Running a full node, a consensus node, or validated node, whatever it's called, like running the consensus basically, it will first be available from mode 3 in production. But currently, if you go into our GitHub library and take down the packages, you can actually just start up your own network and run the system right now on your own, in your own system, own tests, or an own local machine. All that is currently possible to do. So that's fully possible. So I'm not sure what you mean, Fadil. If it's like, can I run my own node to test on my computer, or I can actually hook into production? So that's just.
But I would assume to do the latter, you would need to be rather tech savvy.
Nah, I don't know. You can go in, if you know how to use a terminal and have a Linux machine, you can go in and start the network up on your machine. That's it. You don't need to be a programmer. You just need to be a system operator. That's normal system administration.
Yeah, but at least it's not something I can do.
But
I would actually say there is documentation there. There is a terminal with good help menus and everything, which you need to run a system. So seriously, it's but this is actually
it's all there. You can say
it's all there. It's not. It's still on the terminal level. You need to use how to use normal CLI interfaces like Linux style.
Yeah, we only for now only support Linux.
Yeah, and maybe you can always use the chat to ask questions if there's, I guess, if there's something along the way that you
don't know if you
understand.
satisfied your question, Fadil. Otherwise, please jump on stage or just elaborate in the chat.
All right. Okay, perfect. I think Fadil is satisfied now. For now, that's good. Okay, thank you for the question, Fadil. Okay, but let's move on to funding and exchange listing then. I believe also that is you, Thijs, or?
Yeah, so we want to continue the token sales as is to fund the Tagion project. We are selling a little bit of tokens, not a lot, but some tokens each month, which we actually support the project with, and that's it's a plan to continue with that on the same level. Then we have exchange listing. We get many questions in this area, and we have actually also been discussing it quite heavily here in Liechtenstein, so to speak. And one of our main goals of this project is actually to create an alternative infrastructure that actually works in a way with focus on utility and actually creating real application. We are not and never been so interested in the crypto speculative part, so to speak. I know from an investor point of view, it could sound very arrogant. And I also have some tokens myself as being a part of this project. So of course, we all have an interest of this project succeeding just long term, just very long term. And we discussed when does it actually make sense to start to go on exchange, because we don't want to pump out, I don't know, 10,000 a month necessarily to a market maker, and also 10,000 a month to, or probably even more to PR marketing, just to create some kind of speculative demand. But what is actually then the criteria for start discussing going to an exchange? So we will not actually consider this going to an exchange, because it also takes quite a lot of work to actually start this discussion with exchanges before we have organic demand, enough organic demand. It could come from 1 or 3 projects or 10, depending on the size of the projects. That's number 1. Number 2, we need adequate system stability and resilience to be achieved. And when is that? It's probably when we are in mode 2, because then it's pretty well distributed and can actually, the nodes can crash and boot up again, basically. So that is like our criteria, and if we follow the plan, we will probably start to consider this, or we will start considering this after the summer. It doesn't mean we will list on an exchange or on a central exchange or on a DEX. But that's where we will start the discussion and considering it, because that's where it starts to make sense to do. That is the answer to that question. And I will probably get some more questions now, but that's if we want to be serious and also follow our own values in this project and focus on utility and actually delivering the project to its full capabilities, that's what we should focus on. And yeah.
So it's actually about saying that while the each individual investor might be interested in getting listed on an exchange, it's not necessarily in the interest of the project, and thus in the interest of the investors long term to get listed on an exchange right now. So that's why we're not in a hurry. We do it when it makes sense. And yeah.
And actually another thing, I also have tokens, right? So and then probably many of you have. If you go to an exchange too quickly, and I have probably some of you have seen some of the projects listing, right? What is also will happen if you don't have any real utility is just the price goes towards zero, right? It just drops. So I don't think that's in any interest either to do so. I think it's in all of our interest and also long term that it actually has some real value, the system, before we do so.
Yeah. So through this organic demand, we want to create sort of a floor, a continuous buying pressure, to ensure that there is a buy side before we actually get listed.
And thank you, Tim, for this question. It's a good one.
Yeah, okay, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I can say like the Tagion UDD. Yeah, so I don't know what it should be, Tim. It's very hard to say, and we also try to look into the actual utility of, for example, Ethereum compared to their real utility compared to market value. And I would say if we have, I don't know, this is my personal opinion. If we have between 5,000 to 10,000 UDD monthly, I think I will be. That's pretty. That's okay. That's not nothing. That requires real projects on the platform, right? So that's, I don't know, but that's probably my range, I guess. I don't know if others have other opinions. Yeah.
It's I don't know. I don't think there's a set goal. It when it makes sense. It's very and that's actually also where we it's not like we pretend to know everything, and of course we are welcoming feedback. And I also see now you, Fidel, you also have a good point in saying that it might help in some regard to attract volunteer developers. But yeah, it's it's just to say that where we are right now, it's not like we're in a hurry. What the exact goal? There are no exact goals. It's just that when it makes sense, and I know that maybe can be demotivating to some, but I've just think that's
another thing is everybody can actually list this coin on a DEX if they want to. If you're a developer, it's like it's a community project. It's happening in other communities. That's just one comment. It's not us who necessarily control it. That's one point. Another point is you could have right in this, Fadil, and just to comment on this because it's related. But when we made the strategy for this project, most projects do like the VM part and the developer interface first, and then they don't do the infrastructure before later, because that's the, I would say something rude, maybe the easy part to do. The infrastructure part to make it scalable and actually work, that's extremely difficult. That's why most projects actually skip that part and copy something else. So we started with the infrastructure and not creating it nice for application developers to use or interface for them. It was purely to see if we can actually make a better infrastructure from data formats, database system, everything from scratch. Because if we could not do this, and that's probably where we're a bit older, and Carsten is older than me, we discussed like, if we cannot figure this out anyways, why should we even try to say to people they should build on it, because we didn't solve the problem then. It will just be a lie, right? So we said, let's fix the first most important problem first, which is the infrastructure, the consensus, the database system, and that is difficult. So that also means, but that strategy, we cut off many of the classical developer strategy where you intensify developers and create a quick VM which you can build on, or let's develop on in a sandbox, because we took the other approach. And that's how we did it. But that's actually how we have laid it out from the beginning. And it's too late now to actually revert the decision. No, let's take the Hedegaard discussion first. Tax regulation, you mean in Denmark, or where do you mean? Hedegaard, are you placed in Denmark?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know, because currently they haven't agreed on anything other than postponing it and not doing anything about it. So there is no. What I don't know. What is the answer?
But I have something to say. I've been through the proposal, and essentially the thing is, which is of relevance, especially to us when we're not listed on exchange. They don't touch upon when there's no market price. So if there's not liquid market you can tell into, they actually don't touch upon that. So that's quite difficult to actually know what's going to happen, assuming they actually are going to implement it. What is going to happen with illiquid tokens? I would assume, to the extent that there actually is no way of liquidating your tokens, then they're not gonna, they cannot tax it at a set price. So I would assume they're not going to tax that until there is a liquid market where you don't have a market price. So that would be my assumption. I'm not a lawyer, and I know for even lawyers, as long as it's not specified, then it's quite hard to tell what exactly is going to happen. But it's something we are following very closely. So it's whenever we know something, we will let you know.
Because if they create these layup scattering, what is it called in, I don't know, in English, like inventory taxation, mark to market taxation on illiquid assets, it's always a problem when you do this.
Yeah.
I don't know. You need to collect the money, and somehow then you can get the assets yourself. You cannot get something that cannot be sold. It's simply impossible, right? And then you need to look at least from often in company proceeding and assets proceedings, you can also sometimes look into what is the liquidation value if you send out a portfolio of some assets. So that will be the pricing then. But because, normally you will not tax something that cannot be taxed basically, or sold or liquidated. Anyways, it's not. It's a good point, Fadil, and we took another approach there, and that's just how it is.
But that's also where, just to emphasize, like, nothing is set in stone. So if there is sufficiently good arguments, so it's also something we would. These are the kinds of discussions we also would like to have here, and also hear your opinion, because we have blind spots, of course, and this is just what makes sense to us right here, right now. But maybe that's just because we don't know better. So let's have an open discussions about this anytime, everywhere, anywhere. Yeah. All right. I just saw that another comment popped up. Living in Denmark, I can assure you there's
yeah. But we don't have any market price, so that's good. And Kiberos is writing a question.
Yeah, I'll just comment. It's actually, of course, we are very, very interested in developers, and if you're a C or C++ developer, it should be pretty easy, because we are actually using D, which is a C derivative. It's a C-like language, so it's very easy to learn.
Yeah, I would say much easier. Yeah, it is.
It is as a C developer or C++ developer. It's easy. It's a similar language like C and C++. Very similar, actually.
And especially if you already have experience with, for example, network protocols or whatever.
Yeah, and actually we also use C, of course. We link directly to C, so we use C also. So yeah.
And I think I can add that if you're interested in starting to develop on Tagion and you would like an introduction, then we are happy to set time aside to take an online meeting where we can give you the rough introduction. And then there's a lot of materials. It's possible to run your own notes. There's a lot of documentation, but of course, it's always nice to get an intro. And there will be more documentation, videos, and so on as we go along. It will be developed gradually by the community, and we being part of that as well.
And if I may come in here, because that is exactly what we were pointing at with the next slide, where it's about the participation and community development goals, so to say, where you can see the first bullet point reads successful implementation of at least one community project, which basically just means somebody else but the core team developing within on Tagion and doing what Cerberus was just asking about. So please make that already a tick. Thanks, Cerberus, for volunteering. Come in and do exactly that. That's what we're hoping for. And we're also going to publish on how we want to incentivize that with paying or rewarding that in tokens for anybody coming in and doing something what we make possible but haven't been done before. So even when Carsten said or Tai said, yes, anybody particularly practically could already run a node and test all this and check our documentation. We will also specify that we would be so happy for people to try that out and give us feedback and show us if you're right and wrong, and assuming that anybody could, that we will incentivize that this token in the months coming. So yes, that is one of the goals for community development and incentivizing more participation in this. Of course, we have you as an audience here and in all the other town halls, and there's some engagement on Discord. But to call that a community, often we sometimes look at each other and go like, it's a bit small and a bit bare-threaded sometimes, but that's also a goal for the next 6 months to develop this further. You might have seen us saying that in other town halls last year where we had goals towards this already, and we had to postpone this, but that is also in step with the technical strategy realignment, so to say, where we always keep saying as soon as people can more tangibly interact with our technology and we can point friends, colleagues, interested parties towards what it is and how it feels and how it looks, then it becomes so much easier to actually engage more and more people in active capacity than at the moment where we just have to push it a lot and talk a lot about it without actually then being able for people to experience it themselves. That we took a step back on this, but along with the technical developments and the business development outputs, this community engagement and participation strategy will kick in again in these 6 months. So on the one hand, that is about community actually taking an active role and delivering some of the technical possibilities that we offer with our documentation and the code all being open source and accessible. On the other hand, there's non-technical outputs or goals here, which second bullet point reading active participation for community members in governance, where it's of course not only for developers and coders, but for economists, general interested parties, people who experience that a lot, seen other projects, know how they failed, know how they succeeded, have good ideas, and want to engage with us in this process. That is also the goal for these 6 months. You had, in regards to that, heard us say that we do want to publish documents and our ideas and the documentation of our ideas and the development of our ideas. And you might have realized we started this. So Jonas, just in a second, I'll ask you to show that on the website. So it's the stubs of this are already there. The Tagion Open Notebook on Governance, as we started calling it last year, has been put online bit by bit. And more of that will happen. And if there's substantial parts, we'll also point to that in Discord. So here on the landing page of docs.tagion.org, there's the second button that Jonas just clicked, which is all about governance. Here you can read a general introduction of how we imagine governance, how we define it, how it's going to play out. And if you don't go so quickly, just go up to these phases again. I had wanted to point just the phases. So there is different phases of how our network is actually going to be released from a closed system that it is at the moment, to a distributed closed system, to an open distributed system, to finally a centralized system. And they, of course, also go hand in hand with these modes that Carsten showed you earlier, or Thijs showed you earlier on the tech documentation side. So you can slowly scroll down just for people to see there's the closed release of the network towards decentralization. Then there's a limited release where more and more people can engage, but of course the core team will keep a strong mandate and leverage on how we let people interact with this, also because we need to make sure it's safe and you can't break it, and we can help you and if need be. Then there's a curated release. This then comes with mode 3, I think we specified. And at the end of all these release phases, there then is what we call singularity, and that is when we actually can say it is a truly decentralized system. And we call that singularity because from that moment on, all the rules that we've set and all the ways of working we had established from the steward team won't apply anymore, because it's out of our hands. It's really down to the community to then determine how it's maintained and developed. Of course, we are setting the cornerstones to this. We are laying the foundations. We are creating some rules also along with you, and that will be probably another slide in a minute about what we called the manifesto last year that we're going to talk about. So we hope to be able to establish it in a way that our values and our vision and hopeful targets are maintained, but from that on, then it's a pure decentralized system. Thanks for showing the docs page there.
Yeah, I thought maybe now that you are doing so well, maybe you actually just can speak a bit about
Sure.
Manifesto.
Yeah, so the manifesto, for those who might have not heard this or can't remember, we have started to publish that last year, and this is really we internally we kept calling it the Declaration of Decentralization, so to say, internally. So these are the values and the principles from which we will derive all the governance structures and rules for the Tagion network, and that has been published basically on Discord, so within our community last year, and we were hoping to actually formally and ceremonially putting it into stone at the end of last year, but then we had to postpone the town hall. So we said, okay, let's give it over the holidays. But with the feedback we had on Discord and internal engagements that were sparked by this, actually quite intense conversations and a few updates that we will later publish on Discord as well, so you can see what we changed. We will then set that in stone tomorrow, on the 10th of January. So after this town hall, when we just publish the few paragraphs and the few sentences that we changed in the manifesto after some feedback, you can have another look. And unless there's anybody who raises a severe concern about anything there, at least this part of our governance development will be there. And from that moment on, let's say from next week on, if you go back to docs.tagion.org and the governance pages, there will be then also a sorting into the things that are already set in stone, that are already approved and confirmed, and everything else that you'll find on these pages is really just about the development of our governance, and it's basically ideas, proposals, ideas that we gathered and that we also hope you to feed into. And at some point there will be also a formal process on how we all agree on those then to go into these release phases for which we then need a system that we are testing out with these releases. If you remember from last year, there will be something called the working paper, which sets out the governance rules for the first then for the curated release of the network, from which on more and more parties can actually run nodes, and they need to know by which rules. So that's happening on the governance side in the next 6 months, starting with the ceremonial publication of the manifesto tomorrow. It probably won't be so ceremonial. It's just us putting it on the website and saying it's there.
It's nice.
We'll let you know on Discord with a lot of emojis along with that.
Down in written form. And I don't know, it's already in there. You can read the new, but do you want to share it actually and just go through it quickly? So if people haven't said it, I see we have some new people there. Maybe they just want to just see the motivation and just have it explained quickly. I don't know. Do you want to do this, Lana? No, I'm maybe forcing you a bit, but anyways.
I can
Or
share
should
it
we
for
not
you, and
do
then you
this?
can.
Or
Did you
maybe
already
you can do it
prepare
for us?
the new paragraphs that we
Yeah.
listed
But
on
if
the
it's
UX?
ready
Great.
for it, if it's not okay, then it's fair
So
enough.
no. I let me just. I need to. Just a second. I'll be there.
I can already tell you while Jonas is looking for the document itself. It's coming. Great. Thanks. I'm not going to go through all the few little changes. We'll highlight them later, so you can read it and compare it to the old document that we published last year. But we'll just skip to the privacy, transparency principles. So down there, you see principle number 4. Autonomy, that was unchanged, but transparency, and the last one on the next page, unfortunately, transparency, and the next one is privacy, autonomy. If you scroll down.
But no, it's okay. Yeah, so I need to delete
those
this
4
one up here.
number.
Yeah,
Aha.
that's why.
Good, we're looking at
Yeah.
it.
So
So basically, those two principles have been swapped. So there was one called transparency that was after privacy and anonymity first. Now it's on top because the second one, privacy and anonymity, is referring to transparency. Those have been tightened a little bit. There were some concerns on Discord saying, if you're so strong on privacy and anonymity, isn't that creating regulatory problems? Some regulatory bodies don't like people to be anonymous and make transactions that can't be seen from the outside and traced and checked. So there we specified, as we did on Discourse in the discussion, how that actually works on Tagion, what the difference is between the mainnet being decentralized and thus offering a lot more privacy and autonomy compared to the subsystems that could be just as autonomous and private, but where operators or those people setting these systems up, or those entities or those networks setting those up, can freely choose their roles, the balance between privacy, autonomy, and transparency, to allow all use cases, including those that are striving to be fully compliant in any country to any set of rules. In the decentralization, that is of course out of our hands, and we don't want to control that. But in the subsystems, the people who want to engage with their users there and want to offer services that are regulated, that all is possible too, which on some systems that had a hard time from the regulators, these functions aren't even possible. So we are different in this nice dichotomous way where on the one hand, yes, we offer it, and we make the opposite, full compliance and traceability, also possible in Tagion. To explain that technically, that will be for another town hall and conversations on Discord if you like. But yeah, those two principles, transparency, privacy, and anonymity, those are the ones where we made most changes. So have a look at those and raise your hand before tomorrow if you want us to revisit that.
yes, thank you. And yeah, shout out to Draven Suo, who was the person making the brilliant comment on anonymity, privacy, compliance. All right, but I don't know if there's any
Thanks a
more
lot,
questions.
actually. Sorry. Can you hear us? Yeah. Actually, I wanted to say exactly the same thing as you, Jonas. Thanks for all the comments and inputs. And I would just say we take it extremely serious. We have been discussing, I will not say for minutes, for hours now, because this is heartfelt. Everything we write in this comment is like our child, and we give it away, basically. And of course, this is going to steer the direction of the system, right? So we have been discussing each sentence here more than once. So yeah, thanks a lot for the inputs and all the work for this document, so we can get it not in stone on some kind of server somewhere, but anyways, it's still approved now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
All right. But let me know if there's any more questions. If so, it's here. It's right now. But yeah, if not, you can always ask questions in the chat. And in a month's time, we'll have another town hall session on Thursday, February the 6th, 4 p.m. Yeah, so if you have some questions who you want us to address at the time or before then, simply let us know in here in Discord or in Telegram or whatever you prefer. But yeah, so I think that's it for now. So until next time, yeah, have a good time. All right, see you guys. Bye.
See you. Bye. And